Right, good morning again, everybody. My apology for this mismatch between myself and technology this morning. I um, sincerely apologize. It's my mistake, so I hope all of you can hear me. This is a local government learning network called Civil Coffee Klatsch. We talk about smart city, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, and technology audits. Our next session will be on technology audits. The purpose of our network is so that we can learn from each other and improve service delivery, optimize operations, and strengthen citizen trust, which are the core elements of the service of a local authority. Our mission is to assist local government to lead from turmoil to service excellence, and part of our mission is to change the way we think, the way we see things happening in the future, and from that future perspective, we create a new reality of service excellence. Quickly, my contact details. Our panel this morning, we have online, and it's a very esteemed panel as we normally have subject matter experts. Dr. Nate Bradshaw from the South African AI Association, Mr. Shane Minnie, Guardrail Labs, Mr. Juan Jacquemarcus, President Investment Management, and Mr. Karel van Niekerk, Burger River Municipality. Just about the panel this morning. Dr. Bradshaw's got 30 years industry experience. He's the founder of AI Media Group. He launched the AI Expo Africa. He publishes the Synapses AI-focused magazine, and he's got the YouTube AI TV channel. He's the founder and the chair of the South African Artificial Intelligence Association, which currently has more than 4,600 members. Towards the end of today's session, he will also do an introduction of this. Shane Minnie is a fractional CISO for AI and co-founder of Guardrail Labs, an AI governance consultancy based in Cape Town. He helps organizations tackle shadow IT risk and build practical standards-aligned AI governance, drawing on ISO 42001, the NIST AI framework, and POPIA to make AI adoption safe and accountable. Mr. Karel van Niekerk is the Director of Technical Services at Burger River Municipality. They like to be called Bergrivier. After 19 years of private sector experience, they joined the public sector. Mr. Juan Jacquemarcus is a Manager Portfolio Risk and Analytics at President Investment Management, and this is a new business unit he created to deliver performance, reporting, risk analytics, data stewardship, and process automation for investment businesses. My next few slides, I'm going to introduce the context of local government. So I start with a little sentence at the bottom here. The concept was developed by me. The content was developed with the help of Grok AI, ChatGPT, and Claude AI, and the slides were rendered by Claude AI. So Claude AI also chose the color schemes for the slideshow. Technology follows strategy, not the other way around. So we're talking about artificial intelligence, and it's so prevalent that when we engage local government, that we still see that AI is seen as a magic wand that's going to do things, and it's seen as a loose-standing tool from the business. And what we're going to talk about now is local government business strategy. Why does municipalities exist? We are in the Western Cape, and the core focus of the Western Cape municipalities are to land, national and international investments in their area. There are 4 requirements that investors look at before they invest in a municipal area. They want a reliable service, they want safety, they want security, and they want to make sure that community needs are serviced. So from an investor perspective and from a municipal economic development perspective, we're not talking about technology. And when you see the value chain of local government, where we go from purpose to service delivery, we go through a strategic planning framework that is instituted by the Municipal Systems Act. And it's a normal strategic framework. It is determine the strategy, plan implementation, manage implementation, and do performance management. In local government, we just use different terms. Our IDP is the Integrated Development Plan. It's valid for 5 years, and it is valid from election to election. It is revised annually. So this is the value statement of a municipality, what they will do for the community. Our SDBIP is Service Delivery Budget Implementation Plan. So the service delivery elements and the budget is determined in the Integrated Development Plan. And this is now how we structure to implement. And these are responsibilities, functions and responsibilities allocated to individuals. So this is the execution part of it. And then when we get to confirmed value realization, which is monitoring, we have performance management, we have municipal annual reporting, and we have Auditor General reports. And the latest Auditor General report for 24-25 has just been published in late June. So we are not, when we get to value creation, we are not talking technology yet. The Auditor General findings, and this is these findings come from the year 2000. Now, consider that the white paper on local government was determined in 1998, implementation started in 2000, and the Municipal Finance Management Act was launched in 2003. So from the earliest assessments that were done by the AG and private sector on local government, there were 3 problems identified. We don't have skills, we don't have money, and we've got aging infrastructure. And the root cause of this is a lack of integrated planning on the one side, and the other side, there was an overemphasis on the capability of local government to generate enough funds to actually do their work. Our value is added, and this is we're getting from strategy to form. We allocate people, we allocate finances, we have processes, we manage information, and eventually we also manage infrastructure, and this is technology infrastructure as well as service delivery infrastructure. So technology strengthens the form, but it doesn't replace it. So technology lies underneath people, finance, and process. There are 4 common missteps that we see when it gets to adoption of technology, and specifically artificial intelligence. Technology strategy stands in isolation, and this is one of my pet peeves. You can't have a IT strategic plan if it's not integrated in a strategic plan of the organization, and in local government context in the integrated development plan. It is not a product that we buy. Sometimes it feels like they walk into a shop and they want to go into Pick and Pay and take AI off the shelf and implement it. The third one is public tools over own value. And this is where the data leaks happen in that space. That's one of the biggest risk environments. And then the last mistake is it's not an organizational wide approach. IT is going to do it for us. So when it comes to artificial intelligence, we need to understand that it is underlying, but we are battling perceptions around what it is, what it can do, and what the strategic or the wider capability of IT is. So business do not take responsibility. So the question is, how do we build organizations capable of creating more value, and where can AI responsibly help? Strategy defines what we need to determine, forms delivers it, and technology enables it. So our panel will look at strategy, governance, and we're also going to look at use cases. Right. My first question that I'm going to ask is going to Dr. Bradshaw. Nick, I've just argued that AI has to earn its place inside the IDP SDBIP environment, so it's strategic value chain, that it's a capability we build, not a product we buy. From your work, if a municipality accepts that framing, the strategic frame, where does the real work begin? What does readiness look like before you start? And why should leaders be so wary of quick wins? Over to you.
Yeah, thanks, David. It's a real pleasure to be part of this today and to be on the panel and to meet everybody who's joined the call. Yeah, I mean, maybe I'll zoom out like a little bit from AI for a second. Over the time I've spent talking to customers in systems and software over the course of my career, there's always been some common themes, and often the language that you hear when you go into an organization really will determine whether they're going to be successful. So often when you go in and start talking to organizations about embracing anything, let alone AI, I'm talking CRM, it might be any other piece of software that you may care to mention, or maybe even software that you want to develop yourself, is you begin to talk to the management, you begin to talk to the team. That's if there's actually a team to talk to. And you start to pick up on these trends. And I just wanted to sort of couch some of the kind of language where the language I hear that is going to result in success, and the language that I often hear that's going to result in failure, or a project which is going to be challenged. So everything is about a change, essentially. You're managing a change project or a change program or a series of projects within a program or a portfolio, depending on how big your organization is. And often when you sit down and you talk to the PMO or the project manager, the change manager, head of development, or the person leading it, you ask about purpose, and then you hear about problems. You talk about capability and capability development, and all you hear is development. We need to develop this today. We need to update the dashboard. You begin to see there's a difference in the language between what people are being asked to do and the realities of a successful change program. Another one is competency. Have we got the competency within the organization to manage this change? Often when you go into projects where there's failure, there's a lot of hero project management. A lot rests on the shoulders of one person, and often that person might be sick or they're off because of stress, those kinds of things. So competency, what is the competency and the capability that we're building? Have we got the right people to do this? Do we need to bring in experts? I think there's some on this panel here today. The other thing is short-term versus long-term. We want to benchmark our journey. We want to measure our journey. We're talking about a 3 to 5 year journey versus the the directors told us we need to update the dashboard today. We need to do this widget today. And I've sat in project meetings where someone's literally coming in with a post-it note from a previous meeting to say, like, we must do this today. Okay. The other one is trust versus secrets. So an open environment where people can talk freely about failure. So we tried this, it's not working. So what do we do? Rather than keeping it a secret or trying to dig yourself out of that hole. So trust is a big thing in this. And if you're working in an environment where you don't have trust, then it's going to be a challenging environment. The other one is engagement. Engaged employees, people who are leading the change, need to be engaged. Never give a change program to someone who begrudgingly accepts it. That's going to result in a very tortuous journey for everybody. You need champions which are going to lead the change. And again, this is not really applicable to AI, it's applicable to everything. So it's technology neutral. And the other thing is expectations around time. If you look at the current generation of AI technologies, they haven't been around for very long. And if you look at generative AI, some of the technologies available today weren't available 4 months ago, 6 months ago, 12 months ago. And yet for an organization of any size to get good at something, it takes time. And probably there are people on this call of, you've heard of the 10,000 hours analogy. It takes 10,000 hours to get good at something. Okay, well, 10,000 hours, if you look at 200 working days in a year and 8 hours in a working day, that's about 6.3 years. So if you're wanting to change as an organization, you have to have a planning horizon to realize the value of the change, which has a horizon that's greater than 4 weeks. Broadly speaking, there are no quick wins. And so for the organization to adopt these technologies and get to a point where you've got a highly optimized, highly mature, process-driven organization where all you're spending your time is refining something which is already working well, it's going to take you somewhere between 3 to 7 years to get to that point. And the scope for things going wrong, particularly with AI, is quite significant. You read, I'm sure there are people on this call who've read the disaster case studies of major ICT failures over the years. People are still struggling to deploy CRM. CRM is a glorified spreadsheet with a front end on it. People are still struggling to deploy SAP. So if organizations are still struggling to deploy traditional technology, now you're asking them to deploy something which is highly advanced, rapidly evolving, has some plus or minus in terms of things going wrong, then there's a lot of risk involved in that. Some of the other things that we hear about in the space are things like shadow AI, which is a new phrase for most people. The fact that you're using AI at home to plan your holiday or build some code for your project for your kids or whatever you might be doing. And then you come back into the organization, and before you know it, people are starting to use Claude, or they're fiddling around the edges. Again, it's a positive thing that people are using the technology, but then how are you bringing that back into the organization to realize that value? That's just been my experience. I wanted to keep the kind of conversation more highly abstracted than just diving into AI, but I think many of those principles are applicable to the success of realizing value on any of these projects.
Thank you very much, Nick. Shane, Nick has laid a foundation on a strategic thinking or a strategic approach around the adoption of artificial intelligence. Once a municipality does start that journey, what are the guardrails that keep it accountable as it moves on? And are the guardrails there to slow the organization down or to let it move responsibly at speed?
Thanks, David. Morning, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be here. The guardrails are it's what lets you move at speed, right? It's not there to slow you down, because a car with no brakes doesn't go faster, it just crashes sooner. And for me, it comes down to one question that has to be asked before anything gets deployed, and that is, who is accountable for the decision? And if you can't answer that, then you're not ready to move on it yet. And once you can, then the organization can move fast because you know exactly who's watching and what happens if something goes wrong. I'm going to unpack that accountability in terms of what it looks like in a few minutes. So I don't want to steal my own thunder, but the honest answer to your question is guardrails, they're not the brake pedal. They're what let you go at full speed without your next council meeting turning into an inquiry.
Okay, Shane, you can go ahead with your presentation. Thanks.
So am I going first, Yvette?
Yes, you are.
Okay, cool. No stress. Give me 2 seconds. I hope you could all see.
We are on. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. Right, morning, everybody. So in a little bit, Nick's going to kind of take us through the case for AI strategy, which for me, it's intent before technology, mapped to value creation. But the moment that strategic intent turns into an actual AI-enabled decision, then there's a really big question that shows up, and that is, can you defend it? And that's what governance is. It's not the break on strategy. It's what makes strategy survivable in front of an audit committee. Adoption without governance is a liability, and guardrails don't block AI, they make it defensible. And you'll see as we progress through this, I like analogies, and I felt that with the World Cup having, just been completed on Sunday, maybe a football analogy would be appropriate. So Spain didn't win the World Cup by playing with the brakes on. They won it by building the most disciplined defensive structure of the tournament. They've conceded the fewest goals in World Cup history, a record of 7 clean sheets, and Rodri controlled the midfield so tightly that Messi barely got a touch in any of the dangerous areas. And it's that discipline that led to Torres to go and win it in extra time. It wasn't the structure slowing Spain down. It's what let them play with total conviction when the moment mattered. And that's governance. It's not the brake pedal on your AI strategy. It's the disciplined structure that lets you commit fully when it counts. And you can walk away with a result that you can defend. The core difference is liability versus defensibility. So every AI use case that you'll be walked through during the course of the presentation today, they all carry the same exposure. And governance isn't paperwork that's bolted on at the end. It's what turned, hey, we used AI into, hey, we can show you exactly how, why, and who was accountable. And this isn't a technologist checklist. It's a risk and accountability instrument in the same category as internal controls and supply chain management. A seatbelt doesn't slow the car down, right? It's completely invisible right up until the moment that you need it. And then it's the only thing that matters. Governance works the same way. It doesn't change how fast AI adoption moves, but it changes what happens to you when something goes wrong. And the absence of governance doesn't stop adoption. It just drives it into the shadows. I mean, we've already heard the term shadow AI this morning, and it should sound familiar. In the private sector, 85% of all staff already use AI tools that IT never approved. And I would guess that local government's shadow AI number is most likely aligned to that same figure. Today, you just have less visibility into it. Now, before any control, framework, or checklist, you need to understand where responsibility for an AI-enabled decision sits. Is it the official who used the tool, maybe the executive who approved the use case, or the accounting officer, maybe council oversight? If you can't answer that in one sentence for a given use case, then you're not ready to deploy it. And this single test does more for governance than any policy document. Every framework that I'm going to walk you through just now, it exists to operationalize it. I mean, you wouldn't accept a building plan with no signed permit. If you're handed that building, no matter how well it's constructed, If you can't see who signed it off, it's indefensible the moment it's questioned. And an AI-enabled decision with no named owner is exactly the same thing. Structurally, maybe it's fine. Procedurally, it's unaccountable. You've got 3 anchors and not a 4th AI-specific regime that's bolted on top. You've got King 5, the report on corporate governance for South Africa, 2025. It's effective from the beginning of January this year, replacing King 4. And it's the first King report to set an explicit duty to govern AI. Human oversight, ethical assessment, and transparency wherever AI informs a decision. You need to use this as your backbone. Then the Municipal Finance Management Act for financial accountability. Any AI-enabled decision with a cost or budget implication carries the same exposure as any other spend. It's irregular and fruitless expenditure risk if it can't be justified. Papaya for lawful processing. Any AI system that touches resident data is a papaya question first and an AI question second. These are 3 things that you already answer to. So if you don't mind, I'm going to do another soccer analogy. VAR didn't create a new authority on the pitch. The referee was always the one making the call. VAR just gave that referee better grounds to make a call that holds up under review. And that's what these frameworks are already doing, right? You have the accounting officer, the council, the oversight structures, King 5, MFMA, and Papaya. They're not new referees. They're what's making the calls that you're already making defensible. So now what we do is we add the AI-specific lens on top of that, and that's ISO 42001. This is the recognized structure for governing AI systematically, and it sits on top of, not instead of, King 5, MFMA, and Papaya. King 5, MFMA, and Papaya, they will tell you what and why. And ISO 42001 will give you the how. These are 3 things that you already answer to, plus 1 management system built specifically for AI. And that's your entire backbone. ISO 42001 isn't a new road network. It's like the traffic control system for the roads that you're already driving on, the robots and signals that keep King 5, MFMA, and Papaya running safely at a higher volume without you needing to build new streets. Now, underneath that backbone sits 6 standard risk domains: data quality and governance, transparency and explainability, bias and fairness, human oversight, security, and vendor and third-party risk. 6 separate domains, not 6 boxes to tick on every deployment. Controls scale to the risk of the use case. And a working hours chatbot doesn't need the same weight as a resource allocation decision. So low risk gets light touch controls. Medium risk gets standard controls. And high risk, that gets the full governance stack. Blanket controls, that's how governance earned its reputation as the enemy of innovation. And that reputation is self-inflicted and completely avoidable. And oversight is continuous. It's not a once-off sign-off at deployment. The risk profile changes as the use case scales or as the underlying data changes. Governance is not a checkbox exercise, but it's not the enemy of innovation either. If you take a nurse, right, she doesn't run every patient through the same protocol. A sprained ankle and a heart attack get very different levels of intervention, and the nurse keeps checking back as the patient's condition changes. That's proportionate, continuous governance. Scale the response to the risk, and then you keep watching. You don't set it once and then walk away. So we've started with intent, and now we've got guardrails. Accountability first. King 5, MFMA, and Papaya is your backbone. ISO 42001 for the structure, controls, scale to risk, and oversight that never switches off. So for me, 1 defensible move for the next 12 months, map every AI-enabled decision already happening in your municipality, whether it's sanctioned or not, back to King 5's oversight duty. Not a new tool, just a register. Right, we're going to walk through some use cases in a few minutes, but I want you just to keep 1 question in mind. Who is accountable if it goes wrong? Thank you.
Thank you, Shane. The guardrails is, in my mind, the guardrails should be decided before a use case starts. So leading back from the guardrails perspective, what we should, what our strategic approach is. So from a guardrails perspective, back to the strategic approach. So I'm going to ask Dr. Bradshaw to present, to do his presentation on the strategic side of um, the use of artificial intelligence, taking into consideration the guardrails that should be in place.
Yeah, hi, David. I'm just going to fire up my screen here. So one of the things that I wanted just to share with everybody was we as the association have entered into a 3-year ecosystem building project with the Western Cape government. It's called the Western Cape AI Cluster. I just wanted to flag that with everybody. There may be some useful resources that you might find through engaging with this. I just wanted to use one slide just to kind of advertise it with you, but it's a 3-year project looking to strengthen the AI innovation ecosystem in the province. And one of those aspects to that is to help organizations, whether it's provincial, city, municipal, industrial, embrace the technology. And it's not a single person doesn't have all the answers. That's the other thing that I wanted to say, is that it is a collaborative venture. So just wanted to flag that with people. We have done a lot of research on the ecosystem. I'm not really going to get really deeply into that. But the thing I wanted to flag was something that we launched fairly recently. It's called Ready for AI. It's freely available from the association website. It's a simple tool that you can download. It's an Excel spreadsheet, and it leads you through a readiness checklist. Again, this is not meant to be exhaustive. It's meant to be instructional and guiding. It is tailorable to some extent, but what I wanted to do is just share this as the beginning of anyone wanting to start out on this journey. Even if you've started your journey, it's worthy just to sit back and just assess and benchmark where you are in terms of your change readiness, your readiness as an organization, your readiness as a team. And it's really simple to complete. You don't need to be a deep technical expert to complete it, and we've done that on purpose. I think Shane outlined some very interesting points earlier on, which would be then the next sort of level deep dive into the journey that you're beginning. Whereas this is just sort of more a helicopter view to baseline that maturity before you begin. And it's broken out into 4 domains: strategy, technology, process, and leadership. And there's 9 questions in each section. And the idea is that you can go through this as a team. I typically refer to this as a coffee and donut type assessment. It takes you as long as it does to sit around and probably have a coffee and a donut or a pizza as a team, and to do it in a collaborative way where you openly ask the question and then you look at scoring yourself against that question. Now, this may be something that you do already. Often when I go into organizations, for many people, this is a fairly new exercise. But it's helping you baseline the beginning of that strategy and change journey. Okay, so you end up choosing the score against each of the questions. If the question prompts the discussion, what does this mean? That's a good thing. Okay, if it promotes you and prompts you to ask the question, we don't have the answer to this, then that's a good thing. So the idea is it's not a silver bullet. It's just a point on a graph, and the assessment actually creates a graph for you of your maturity and gives you an overall score. And then what you can do is plug those gaps over time. You're not going to have the ability to plug all the gaps in one go. As I said before, it's a journey. We are going to be running a workshop on this at the Western Cape AI Cluster event, which is happening in Cape Town in August at CTIC. And we're actually going to go through 4 different workshops: AI readiness, policy, Center of Excellence, and AI factory. So again, for people on the call that don't know about it, Cassava Group is launching Africa's first AI factory in Cape Town. It's actually going operational this month. What they will be offering and how that can benefit provincial, city, and municipal government still to be defined. But actually, this is the beginning of that journey, and this is the chance for you to become curious and ask that question. How do we leverage an AI factory? How can we leverage an AI center of excellence? How can we build our own AI center of excellence? How can we craft an AI policy? And then are we ready to embark on this change? So these will be 90-minute hands-on workshops that you can join, and through DeVit we'll be issuing invites to that. But going back to this assessor, we purposely did it in Excel because Excel is the most easily understood and used product on the market. And it's just a very easy way for you to download something, play around with it, come up with a score as a team, and then and begin that journey. There is some tailorability to the actual questions, particularly around maybe you want to put in some certain standards that you have to comply with. I think Shane eloquently mentioned some earlier on. But what we don't recommend is start changing the scoring matrix or the response matrix. Tailor the questions, but don't mess around with the rest of the application. So again, I put it out there as a tool to begin that readiness change strategy journey, and obviously if you'll be welcome to join the workshop in August. So I just flag that up as a tool everyone can use. It's freely available from the association website, saaiassociation.coza. It's also free to join the association and get on our newsletter and find out more about these things and events that we run. So yeah, please guys, if you want to do that. I can't post to the chat for some reason, but saaiassociation.coza, and then the page on there with the app is Ready for AI. If you click on there, you'll see it. So handing it back to you, David.
Thank you very much, Nick. I'm sorry about that inability to post. I see. Thank you, Matthew, for posting the link to the AI Association. We've now seen the strategic approach, the intention that a strategic leadership should have around it. We've seen the guardrails. We've introduced a platform that was created now by in association with Dr. Bradshaw and the Western Cape government, where municipalities can come and learn, and also the self-assessment tool. So there is a point of departure, and there's also a point. The point of departure is where are we, and the point of departure is also how can we equip ourselves better in order to responsibly get to the use of artificial intelligence. And one of our panel members that has got a story and a storyline around the use of artificial intelligence is Ruan Jakomakis. He's going to present from his prescient experience. When you strip it right back, where does AI capability actually live? In the tool or in the people or in the processes? And you put 2 tests to it. How do you get people to reach for AI to augment their work rather than quietly resist it out of fear? And if a vendor switches the AI off tomorrow, would the work still be able to run? So Ruan, thank you very much. Over to you.
Thanks, David. Is it a good time for me to maybe answer via my presentation?
I think you should, yes.
Okay, cool. So good morning, everybody. This is what I want to share with you guys today. I'm also trying to attach it to the chat, but also struggling, but it's fine. We can maybe distribute it later. So I think I want to start off answering your questions, David, by just emphasizing the fact that good leadership has become more important than ever in this age of AI. So what do I mean with good leadership? I think it's been echoed in various ways, from a governance perspective, a strategic perspective, but I also want to take the human aspect because having been sort of involved with managing teams for the last year or two, I've been taking very careful notice of how the humans experience all of what has been mentioned actually, and asking myself, how do I maximize the value that all of us as a team are bringing when we have new tools coming onto the scene, new technologies, which is things like AI, obviously. But somebody still has to deploy these. Somebody still has to come on board and actually have the confidence to know that I'm adding value from my skill set, from my experience, from the human, right? And the AI is a new tool. It's an amazing tool. It's an advanced tool, but it should fit into the value that I am bringing to my organization. So I'll be talking from a business perspective, but I think these principles transfer exactly to the public sector as well. And that's sort of where I want to start is, as leaders, I think this is a key message to give our teams. The judgment that I as a human bring is the job. The sign off that I do, as I really enjoyed Shane's emphasis on the guardrails and the value that the guardrails actually add, that it's not breaking down the innovation, because what it comes down to is that the humans need to sign off on a thing, and that's why I signed off this presentation with my name, a bit like you did, David, but mentioning that, look, AI helped me build it, right? So every human is bringing their piece, whether it's an artifact or an app or a feature or whatever it may be, and a human's name needs to be on that, but we're just having advanced tools these days to help us. And I think what I want to share with you guys is a few almost mind maps or frameworks to think along, and words or concepts, just like you said, Nick, the language, I think that is useful. Let me start with the story when I started in my career, and hopefully this will phrase the gist of what I'm trying to bring across as a value first AI adoption use case. When I started out, our chief investment officer put a paper on the wall that he printed out from a let's call it an incumbent life insurer who charged 3% investment fees for their funds, but it was very much hidden for the client. So every year this client was paying massive, it's like 5 times more than it should be, investment fees for a product that was mediocre at best. And he stuck it on the wall there in our office where we walk in every day, because he wanted us to remember why we are there. We're there to bring a superior product, or at least a product that performs as it should, but that also has the trust and the understanding and communication to our clients, that they understand and trust what we bring, so that they are not beholden to this state of not understanding how much they are being charged, and the effect that it has at the end of the day on their retirement, right, and their quality of life at retirement. So this is my little story, and lit the fire in our bellies to do what we do every day, because we had like people in mind that we are serving, right? So this is still from a business perspective, but I think each of us in the room needs to understand, who are we serving? Who is that person that, or the people or community or whoever it may be, that is benefiting from the work that we do every day? Because that should really anchor whoever is giving us the value, in terms of whether it be fees or rates or whatever it may be. Those are the people who are due the value in return. Because if we start there, the rest of our strategies and our planning, etc., falls out almost naturally, including our AI strategies and our tooling and all of that. So these are the 3 questions I want to hand over to you guys and bring into your strategic AI planning and so forth. Who do we serve? What do we owe them? And what do we verify that against? So this is the way I've been running my teams. It's a very innovative space, but it's also, I'm part of the governance and risk committee. I'm part of the, I run the portfolio risk team and so forth. So it's really, this is how you bring the governance and the strategy with the day-to-day innovation that we need. This is how I've been building it out, and I'll give you an example now. If you do it for the people, it serves the box ticks itself. So it's not a tick box, so it's not to satisfy the auditor. It's really about the outcome that we want to get to the end of the day. And the owner produces the work, but the AI is one tool of many. Now, the example, okay, and there's a little film that I made to sort of give that as a nice little storyline. But the example I want to share with you guys is a risk process that we had to establish, and it comes back to the leadership point I made earlier. There was a first or second year analyst that was able to build a risk analytics tool that was actually supposed to be built by someone with like 5 years of experience, type of thing. But he could do that because as leader, I created the top-down value framework, value first framework. So I went down and I said, what is this risk tool supposed to deliver? Because as the owner of the function in the business, that is for me to determine. So I went with him, wrote it down. We use meetings and then transcribe our meetings, feed that into our AI. We use Claude, Then I sign off to say, this is the value that this risk tool needs to create, and this is how it affects our clients, etc. Then it goes over to a more specific logic layer where the team member could then go throughout the business, use his AI to research best practice formulas, etc. And he came up with the formulas needed to build this risk tool. And then he now asked me to give input, of course, asked the various role players to give input. Now this logic was sound and it was now signed off. And then it moved into the implementation phase where we have our code and we have our data that needs to come together to deliver this tool, whatever it may be. For us, it's a high impact, risk analytics tool. And it was so easy. It's almost crazy to imagine how easy it was for an AI to then build against that spec, because the guardrails and the definition of success was clearly defined. So when we fire up our Claude code to write the Python scripts and build the database schemas and whatever else, it did exactly what it was supposed to do, because it wasn't just a prompt and a junior trying to feel around in the dark and get something to work. It was driven from the top down, from sort of the top management downwards, and the spec was signed off in sort of English prose at the higher levels, and then the domain owners were signing off the formulas. So then when the actual tool is built using AI, we had a great way to verify, excuse me guys, we had a great way to verify that this thing was not hallucinating, doing the wrong things, etc. So this was a great use case that I experienced, and this same individual is now coaching other teams on how to do the same thing. So what I'm trying to say is we are elevating the humans. If we have good leadership, if we guide them, if we create, as leaders, build the runway for our teams to take off on, that to me is the key that really unlocks the potential that we have available with these new tools. And it needs to end again with the person that is passing the value, that is paying the rates or the fees or the whatever else. And that really helps to frame it around that. And then the last little point on the heritage of this, the person I'm really following is one whose research you guys can look up if you're interested in this stuff, called Douglas Engelbart. And he was the founder, they quote him as the inventor of the mouse and of like the Teams chat we're doing today. He built this in 1968. He had a Teams chat with like a virtual chat with someone on a different campus, and you could see the person's face. They could share their screens back, what's this now, 50 years ago, whatever. But this person's vision in life is to augment human intellect, and he calls it our collective IQ, and that really is our ability to solve our hardest problems. And that was really started from a human benefit perspective, and the technology therefore fits into that frame. So it's not exactly as David warned earlier, it's not go pick a piece of AI off a shelf somewhere. It's to ask, what are our team members responsible for delivering and accountable for delivering, and how can we augment their knowledge with these amazing large language model tools and all the rest of it. And I think that's how we actually just increase the humanity and civilization's capabilities. I think that's all I have to say right now. David, value first, AI second. Ask those three questions. Who do we serve? What do we owe them? And what is that verified against? So that when the vendor switches off their service, it's fine, because we've built in documentation, signed off at every step, the actual logic and the actual processes. And at the end of the day, the delivery is a piece of technology that AI actually helped us build, and we understand every part and have signed off every part of that value chain. Therefore, it's fine. It will maybe slow us down a bit, but it's not going to switch off the lights for us if the AI vendor suddenly, stops giving us their services, or whatever else may happen in regulation to prevent it, or that type of thing. When AI adoption comes up again, start with this conversation, and that's what I want to encourage everybody with. Thank you, David.
Thank you very much, Ruan. So the strategic value is maintained from strategy right through technology as a supporting entity. I'm going to go to Carl. Carl, the AI capability lives in people and processes, not in the tool. And you've lived in the private sector, now in local government. You were both sides of the coin. Now leading technical services in the municipality. So you're the person to ground all of this for us in the room. What actually transfers and what doesn't? So from a strategic perspective, from technology perspective, and from a business capability perspective, what transfers and what doesn't? When you bring private sector AI thinking into municipal environment, with the MFMA and the King 5 duties and the AGSA findings we opened with, where does the genuine work lie, and where do you have to do something different because this is local government? I think the only change between, or the only difference between local government and private sector is we are talking about service delivery in private sectors, talking about quality of their products and the financial bottom line. Local government cannot always look at the financial bottom line. So, Carl, thank you very much for participating. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so I worked for WSP before I joined the municipality, and it's a global company. And one thing I was mostly in the mining sector. If you get to a new mining project and that you spend the whole municipality's budget of a year in a month, you need to get to know a lot of information very quickly. Yeah, so one thing that we need to understand is that AI needs to adopt our culture, how we work in that, and we should not go into the AI culture in that. So when I started here, everybody's using AI, and you can see very big loopholes in that sense. So one thing that I had to do first is understand the whole municipality of all the regulations and all the rules and all the laws governing to that. So strategically, you need to look at how you produce your documents and where do you save all your information, and that AI can actually train on what is specifically to the municipality. A lot of people ask a question and it gets answers from another municipality that's not relevant to our municipality. So yeah, what I bring from the private sector, what we used AI for is actually to become that assistant. Everybody that use AI for a while will see it can bring you from a very low level expert to a novice expert. But when you start going to Power BI and you do dashboards, and that AI's got limits and it's got a way that it presents that's not necessarily your way. But it can assist a lot. So what we are building now is we're building in the cloud, in SharePoint, we're building our folder structures and all our files in that AI can train on the history of the municipality, get a centralized data, all the data that comes from the different water meters and electrical meters and the testing that we use AI to automate that, to bring into a one source of truth. And now it's easy for the people on site when they get on their phone and that they can say to Copilot, just refer to that agent, and I need an answer on electricity in that certain area that's now already trained on our spatial development plans, our electrical infrastructure, our assets around that. So we decided we're going to use AI to get the people out of the office into the field. And as previously said by one of the panel members, is that, what value does it give, and what is your strategic approach to use AI in that? And you should not go out of that boundaries. Also, we've got now in my department system, whenever something is produced by AI, we do verifying checks and audit checks through another AI agent as well. So just to get that to make sure that it's in line that. So it makes work quicker if you know what to do, if you know what your end product is. Unfortunately, AI will never get somebody that doesn't know what's the end product to get to the end product. And that's also a big danger in it. I've told my team as well, we also on the AI detectors, we run everything through AI detectors to make sure it's not pure AI. There must be some intelligence from the human. So, and one thing is artificial intelligence. It means it's like it mimics somebody's intelligence and that. So it's important for us to train our AI bots into our intelligence and how we think. So it's specific to what we are doing. And once you get there, now there's 2 months in that, I know about 90% more than anybody else in my division about what's going on in the municipality in the history, because I use AI tools like Notebook LM and that to create podcast for me, so I can listen to all the history of the municipality, look at the IDPs, the 10-year master plans for all the infrastructure. So it just gets you up to speed very fast, and you should use AI for that in a reasonable way. But when you're up to speed to go forward, now we're busy building from APIs, Power BI dashboards, and that. There is some issues using AI currently with that, in how AI interprets your data. That's also a difficult thing. So there is quite a bit of risk in the people using AI, and I would say in the organization you always need to have that governance processes in how do you audit any decisions or any product that comes out of AI. But definitely also say where can AI help us with reducing administrative tasks. I've got a PA. It's the first time in my life I have a PA. I don't use my PA that much anymore, so I need to train my PA now up to become more digitally skilled, to have other skills, because I've got AI. In the mornings I ask Copilot, just go through my mails. Is there any trending mails? Is there any thing that's outstanding? I don't even read my mails. I just get AI on my way to work, just to give me a summary of what is the risk profile of my emails. And then it's also AI bot that you train and say, this is how I need to look at it. This is my risk, my risk that I will allow on that, and it will track all the emails that's coming in, to do that. And then also how you work in a collaborative way, and that you can't have 7 SharePoint sites. You need to have centralized data. If you don't have centralized data, AI will not work for you. So, but yeah, there's quite a lot of benefits in the use of AI, but when it fails severely, and I think that must also be noticed or be understood by the people that AI, when AI goes south, it's really problematic. Yeah, so I don't know if there's any other questions.
Carl, just a question. How did you convince your team to buy into the use of artificial intelligence? How did you do the change management?
So the first thing I did, I showed two people here that knows nothing about coding, and they wanted to do something, and they tried it in PowerPoint, and I just showed them how you can do it in AI and HTML coding, and they were so impressed. They took that thing home and showed their wives and their friends and everybody. So sometimes you need to start with the candy to start a change management. But then you get to the point that now we're in the point of changing as how do you select your AI? So we need to use Copilot, because if I put anything on ChatGPT, it's in the public domain. So most of the stuff in the municipality can go to the public domain, not everything. And that is now a governance process that we need to start teaching them, and have that change of mindset. Okay, don't put your payslip in ChatGPT and ask, why must I pay so much tax? But now learning people skills they never had, that's quite easy. And then so that helped quite a bit with the change. And also showed HR the other day how you can scan in handwritten HR applications and that, and how can produce a database. If everything is on SharePoint, you can point ChatGPT or Copilot to that SharePoint, and it can extract that handwritten data. So now from 4 months of capturing applications, and that makes it easier. So target small problems, fix it with AI, show the colleagues how to do that, and then that is fast. It's the issue now is just don't let them run away on their own tangent on it.
Thank you very much, Carl. I've got a question that I want to direct to Nick and to Shane. Working with municipalities and the situation that they have with the Auditor General, there's a constant question that comes up from the AG side is, what is your AI strategic plan? Now, what is your opinion about having an AI strategic plan in an organization, and where, if ever, should such a plan live? So, Nick, if we can go to you first with that.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's the wrong question. It's not an AI strategic plan. That's the technology. It's the capability plan. What is it that you wanting to build? It would be very similar to someone saying, "What's your SharePoint plan or your CRM plan or your ER?" Do you see what I'm saying? You're leading with the technology rather than the service or the capability or the competency strategy or plan. And I think this is actually, it was interesting to listen to Carl talk about SharePoint. My last company I ran, and we had 22 people fixing broken SharePoint across the whole of South Africa, with some very large customers, one of which was a government customer. And the classic challenge, and again, I'll use SharePoint as an example. Just substitute AI with SharePoint. It's the same thing. What's your document strategy? Oh, SharePoint's our strategy, right? It's substituting the technology for, we have a strategy. So where are all our documents? They're in SharePoint, right? Well, that thinking, you're looking through the telescope through the wrong way, and I think that's the mistake. People, particularly in metrics and audit functions, particularly if they're not close to the technology or the business, if they've never worked in a change environment. I walked into an organization up in Joburg, very large company, and I went down and talked to their PMO, and they were running some massive projects, and it was one person. And the strategy was send everybody on the Prince 2 project management course, and now we're doing project management. That's not what it is. And there was the team of 4 had now been reduced to a team of 1. 2 of them were off on long-term sick. The other person, I don't know why they weren't at work, but again, it's that leading with the technology rather than the competency, capability, or service that you should have the strategy for. And so I think that's, again, it goes back to that thing I said at the beginning. When you hear that language, that's when you sort of put up a flag and say, hang on a minute, our AI is going to support the capabilities and competencies that we want to build to support what we do, which in the case of municipal government is look after the citizens of the city or the town or the municipality, or if you're at the city level or the provincial level. I think the question that's being asked in industry, just to sort of, again, have an adjacent overview and talking to people that work on massive digital transformation projects inside banks and organizations like that, is they're asking the question, how do we remain relevant? Right? We as a bank may not exist in 20 years' time. There may be something that replaces us. How do we remain relevant? And so those kinds of questions are typically surfaced in an organization that is having that long-term conversation, rather than saying, well, what's our AI strategy? You have strategies built around the competencies, capabilities, and services that you are building to sustain yourself to do what you do as an organization. And so, again, I guess my answer to that is, that if you hear that, that's the wrong question, I think, particularly if it's coming out of Auditor General, people sitting in audit functions, people asking questions about value for money. I'll give you another example. In the UK, I worked for an organization to help them implement requirements engineering. So just one key process across their entire organization, which drove systems development. Okay, so this was a large systems integrator in the aerospace sector. And they had 42,000 people spread across, I think it was something like 14 geographies. And they were wanting to implement this one process. And they spent within about a 3-year period, $12 million on the software. They spent $135 million training people. And they went on a 7-year capability maturity plan journey. It took them 7 years to get to CMMI level 5. Okay. So if you want to build good systems, you have to ask the question, what is the strategy we have for improving our processes, our competency and capability to do the things we do? Build a missile, build an aircraft carrier, build a toilet system on the A380. That's actually, if anyone's flown on the A380 and you use the toilets, I worked with the team that put that system in the plane. That's one of the, arguably, after the flight control system, that's the most complicated system on the plane. Okay, so how do you do that? How do you do that? And that's the question that if you know, as I say, if you hear these technology-led questions, turn the telescope around the other way. Technology enables and supports what we do, and therefore the strategy has to revolve around the things that we need to build to do what we need to do. And AI is only one tiny part, and probably the most tertiary part of that conversation, because it will be more about the people, the process, the change program, the investment to make sure everybody's performing optimally, training them on the new processes, bringing them on the journey. Yeah, as I said, change starts with very engaged employees. So again, long answer to the question, but hopefully you find that useful.
Thank you very much. Shane, from your perspective, let's talk about the AI strategy. But should this AI strategy not revolve around how are we going to govern before we start to work? So we've got organizational strategy, then we've got form, then technology. So how are we going to govern the technology before we start to use it?
Look, for me, the strategy should be driven by why you want to use it. Ruan was spot on early on. If just saying you want a piece of technology for the sake of having it, it's you're never going to get any value out of that. And what I'm seeing with a lot of companies that I work with is that the board is saying we need to use AI, but they're giving you no direction as to why. They're not investing in the right tools. They're not investing in the right governance or security. They have no idea what they want to use it for. They just want to remain relevant, as Nick was saying now. You want to make sure that they want to make sure that they're as competitive as whoever they're up against in the market, without unpacking how they want to use it. It's the same as companies that we want to run SAP. Well, what do you want to run it for? No, we need a system that can, do inventory. We need a system, but there are other things out there that can do that. But the big corporations are running it. That doesn't mean it's right for you. And when it comes down from it to governance needs to be built in from the start. But if you don't have that use case identified as to what it is that you're trying to use it for, then your governance bolting it on afterwards isn't going to be the answer. So they kind of go together for me.
Okay, thank you, Shane. For Carl and Ruan, this is my last question to the panel, and then we're going to open the floor for questions. How do you ensure that the ownership of a use case isn't seated in one person, and when that person leaves, everything falls flat? How do you transfer the ownership from the thought leader to the entire organization? Ruan, can you go first, please?
Yeah, sure. So I very quickly realized that AI enables us to do something at scale which was very onerous and almost expensive to do before. And that is, there's various things to call it, but let's call it documentation first development. So suddenly we have a librarian who can first of all go and look into your company internal library and find all the relevant information, especially if it was filed in a proper way. and then bring that to the surface. Now it hands it to the humans who then work with it and ensure that the quality of decisions are very high. Then decisions are made. Now I also have a PhD level, language expert and domain expert who can help me write up my specs and my requirements, the definition of success, etc., and then go and file it in the library, hand it back to the large language model who's great with libraries. So now I'm building, and this is what I did in my team, and my best way to answer your question, David. We have now built a extensive library of documents that are linked like wiki style. If someone wants to look up an LLM wiki, it's a methodology. There's lots of YouTube videos on how to build that type of thing, which it now has those links between all of the atomic pieces of knowledge on our link, like a big network, or you can almost picture a brain, these neural network pictures or whatever. So now I've documented the team's estate almost of all of our knowledge, and now anyone in my team has access to that knowledge base, and we are all collaborating on that space. So that is exactly how I could commission a junior person who's never worked and in the investment team to build this risk system I told you about earlier, is because I told him and his Claude, basically, I trained and I created these foundations. For example, I created what I call the AI starter kit, which is a folder with markdown files. It's not complicated, and you build it with your Claude or whatever you were using. But the key in the tool is that the AI should be able to change files on your machine, and then that syncs up to a SharePoint, OneDrive, or whatever you're using. And in that way, it now shares across my team. So now with this starter kit, I train the human and his AI agent to interact with my knowledge library. And he ran with this project. And in a matter, it's not even been a month. And the amount of things he's learned and developed, and as I say, now he's coaching other teams on doing the same thing, because he's actually like a borrowed from a different team, and he wanted to come sit in my team to learn. So now my team is launching coaches, AI so-called coaches, but it's about more than the AI, David. It's about the knowledge base, and that's something that people, I don't think, appreciate fully, that large language models have enabled today, which people like Doug Engelbart I mentioned earlier. He was basically the inventor of what we call the World Wide Web, because he came up with the idea called hypertext. So you have the text, but then you have like the blue text, which means there's text about the text. This thing takes you somewhere else, this piece of text, right? So that concept allows you to link this whole knowledge base, and that is how you make it not a person dependent. Because if I walk out today, I think by this time I've created more than 1,500 documents of more than 1.5 million words. The last time my Claude counted it for me. And that's really taking the tacit knowledge that sits in my head or other people's heads and making it explicit. And now this knowledge base, a human with accountability plus the AI with the librarian skills and the PhD level writing skills, can just fly. And I think that's the secret weapon, because everyone has access to the same AI tools. But this type of intentional knowledge creation, I think, is going to be the secret sauce for success. I hope that helps, David.
Thank you, Rowan. Carl, from your perspective, how do you embed a strategy in a team?
Okay, so I want to thank Nick for his observations, and it's crucial. I wrote an article in WSP's intranet a couple of years back about the digital delusion. We all want to go digital, but Outlook is also digital. And I think learning from Outlook, we're following the same mistake with AI now is Outlook has become a project management tool, that it's not. So firstly, as Nick also say, my outcome is when I was WSP, we want a paperless construction management system because we don't want engineers sitting in the office. That's the outcome. What tools are we going to use for the outcome? Same at Bergenveen Municipality. I want one source of the truth. What technologies are we going to use? So now identifying each person's need in the municipality, like my project manager, the head of project management, he's got some outcomes he needs to reach. And you need to train him to use all set tools to get to that outcome. It might not be AI. It might be Power BI and Claude mixed in that, but you need to identify the needs of the people for the outcomes they need to reach or want to reach, and then train them on that. Then you got specific skills that goes out, and it actually speaks to the need of the people. So I'm working in a different environment that you've got. We based as a client in that, so we have some outcomes that we can dictate and that. But so my project manager versus my civil engineer might have two different outcomes they need to have. My electrical engineer, he wants everything on his tablet. He wants to wake up in the morning and see the health of the electrical network. That's the outcome. Then I'm sitting with him currently and say, okay, how do we get all the data to one point? After we get all the data, how can we build an AI agent into the data to analyze the data and give you a report and send it to your WhatsApp every morning before 7 when you wake up? You've got your little report to say this is what it is, and that in that way you get everybody to buy into saying using the tools, using the AI. As a tool, and all the supporting. AI doesn't stand alone. AI stands on a lot of stuff that needs to support it to actually become something that is decent. And that is now you start getting everybody to use the tool correctly to get to the outcome. And that is my strategy is to embed these tools. So AI is maybe 20% of use I have. My current biggest tool that I use is Power BI. Luckily now you can connect Claude and that to Power BI and that, but a data analytics, as I also say, it's AI just helps you to a point, but to tell the story, AI is not very good in telling the story in the way that you need to tell a story. But yeah, identifying the needs of each specific person, from HR to project managers to civil engineers to accounting, assisting them to use all the tools to get to their outcomes, and upskilling them to get to that point, and then that dilutes down to all their other team members.
Okay, thank you, Carl and Ron. So what you demonstrated to me is you are showing personal value. So the use of the individual's use of artificial intelligence creates personal value. So it's that augmentation capability that makes them adopt it. So at the background, we need to make sure that the data and functionality exists that should exist. I'm going to open the floor for questions. And Abdul, I see you posted a question. Can you please unmute yourself and ask your question? Abdul, are you online? Abdul, we can't hear you.
Can I rescue Abdul while he finds his unmute button?
Yes, please.
Cool. So thanks, guys. It was actually quite insightful. Sort of a lot of areas I probably hadn't thought of before, which is always fascinating for me. So coming from a local authority perspective, again, similar to some of the other colleagues, I've worked in both private sector for a very long time and probably equally as long in local government, and there's quite a diverse culture difference between the two. So my question is really reflected upon local government culture, I guess. So it's culture dependent. So my question really is this, and I'm kind of getting into the sort of practicalities of it, of the AI, and perhaps this is a manifestation of my own fears, but let me put the question to you. So how does an organization balance the benefits of AI-enabled high-performing teams with the need to preserve institutional knowledge and avoid excessive reliance on AI? Is this a real-world risk? And I'll give you the example. I received a report a little while ago, and it was an internal document outlining controls that need to be established to mitigate a significant risk. When I delved into it and started discussing it with the individual, it became exceedingly obvious I couldn't, because they didn't have their AI with them. So they on the surface, they looked extremely competent. They understood the control, they understood the risk, they could talk about it in the document quite authoritatively, but when you engage with the human, that's the jockey of the AI, without the AI, they were completely lost.
Okay. Thanks, Gavin. Gavin is the IT manager for Bito Municipality. For those of you who don't know where that is, it's Plettenberg Bay. Can I direct this question at Nick, you and Shane, please?
Yeah, greetings to Plettenberg Bay. I'm in Langebaan, so a nice part of the world. I think maybe can you repeat just the question, like, again? Sorry,
So essentially, it's, the risk is that people we encourage the use of AI. It gets abused, and what guardrails do we need to put in place to identify capable, competent individuals versus people who are just reliant on the AI? And is that a real risk in the real world, or is this just a manifestation of my fears?
Yeah, I'll let Shane talk about the guardrails, but I was at Stellenbosch University the other day talking about the Western Cape cluster and what we're doing, and someone asked us a very similar question, and it was about this idea about outsourcing learning to AI, outsourcing your understanding to AI, relying on AI, forgetting what first principles questioning is, and I think that and you mentioned if the person didn't have the AI with them, then they couldn't really engage properly on the subject. That's part of the problem. Is this if you outsource your understanding of the problem to AI, it's about like outsourcing it to a consultant. If the consultant's in the room with you, then that's great, and you're paying X amount of money for them to be in the room, 40 grand a day or whatever they're charging you. But if the consultant's not there and you can't answer the question because the consultant's not there, then you've outsourced your own knowledge or understanding of the problem and how to solve it or carry on running that aspect of the project or whatever it is. So I think this is, we were talking about it as a thesis subject, this idea that AI is making people lazy, or you're just absolving yourself now from even writing a document. I've had so many people, one person in particular at a partner organization, just sending me AI generated documents were complete nonsense, and they thought it was acceptable. And if you question them about it, it was like, well, yeah, but everyone's doing it, right? Well, not really. Why do you need to send me a 10-page AI slop document that you don't really understand when you could just send me a one-line email or even a WhatsApp? And so I think part of this, we talked about culture. There's a generational educational thing here, that AI is not this magical panacea for you to outsource all your responsibilities about understanding what you're doing. You need to know what you're doing. We're living in this very interesting time, and I think that's a very good example of it. I mean, we were just talking about it last week in Stellenbosch University, so it's one of the topics of our time, I think.
Just to follow on from what Nick was saying, I think the challenge is really understanding why you have this situation in the first place, and I think that's because so many employees are finding they're living in fear that AI is going to replace them, the reality is that AI is not going to replace you. Somebody who can use AI better than you is probably going to replace you. And understanding that it's not you're not expected to know everything at any given point in time, right? Yes, you have subject matter experts, and subject matter experts should be the ones that are effectively the human in the loop for any AI generated content. You need to be able to verify that it is accurate. You need to be able to verify that it was put together within the constructs of what is legally allowed. There are guardrails that you can put in place, both technical and policy. So you can have an AI use disclosure policy, which means that anytime that you use AI, you will have to disclose it. Your acceptable use policy can cover that as well. And then you can put in technical guardrails like you can have AI content detection and metadata audits and that kind of thing, which, potentially it has the risk to kind of drive use underground as well. But as you say, Gavin, it's really easy to tell when people have been using it, especially if you're used to the types of communication that you usually get from them. Suddenly the language doesn't match up. You've the AI telltale signs of those long dashes, those M dashes, is something that doesn't show up. It's easy to pick up. As somebody who's managed various teams over my career, I'd say an honest conversation with somebody the first time that you pick that up is probably the best way to nip that in the bud. Manage their expectations, make your expectations clear, and after that, start looking at putting the right guardrails and security in place.
Carl, from a local government perspective, can you come in on this one?
I can give you from an engineering perspective. So what I've realized is AI does have a danger. If you don't have understanding, it takes you to the lower curve of what you produce is just worth nothing. We always say in engineering, you need to have a sense of order size of what you're doing. And that's disappearing quite fast. And excessive use of AI is not helping on that. And I've seen engineering reports that comes out of AI that is out of the order magnitude of 100 times what it should be. What I've realized that a person with understanding, one person with understanding with the help of AI can do 10 people's work. But one person without understanding can destroy 100 people's work using AI. So you need mentorship. You need to make sure that person can, without the assist of AI, and that also have understanding. Unfortunately, in engineering, that is disappearing now. Of years of using software, and you give an input and you get an output, and nothing in between. Like maths, so you need to have that steps in between to see where you're going and that. So I also teach my people with AI is you first start with your intent. What is my outcome? What do I need to achieve? What steps do I need to take? So there's a method of speaking to AI in a structured way to get the output. But if you put it in the input and just take the output, you're failing quite hard. And in engineering, that is now where we find buildings that is failing, roads that's failing. It's because people are designing using AI and just giving one sentence in and taking a whole report out to the other end.
Thank you, Carl and Nick and Shane. So it boils down to personal responsibility. We stay the subject matter experts, and that's a responsibility we can't hand over to artificial intelligence. Jonathan, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you, David. Just perhaps a comment from my side as to, I agree with what Gavin said. Obviously, that is a potential risk, but I'm just speaking from a point of view where I historically trying to get risks away from my risk register that has been placed with me, of which I have no control over to begin with. So and that's a work in progress. So, as it relates to our current climate, obviously for me, the struggle is to ensure that we can assist and enable business towards a reliable version or a single source of the truth. And that's obviously, for me, rather the risk that I would want to address, because I'm not sure to what extent, even though it's valid, we could perhaps mitigate the risk of stuff using AI, but not necessarily have the champions on that specific subject matter. I think as a supporting function, or IT as a whole, an enabler, obviously we need to provide the technology. My challenge at this present age, and I think it's generic, we are sitting on systems that's not necessarily fully integrated. We have departments still operating in certain silos where information is coming in, and we are providing from our side, obviously, an adoption process and strategy to our business for the use of AI, and we are pushing our users towards the use of Copilot within our existing license. But we know the risk is still there, and users can still effectively use AI and shadow IT as a that unfortunately is a risk, and which we must manage from our side. So I would want to, in this climate, also just perhaps get some advice as to how we can strategically assist business to obviously improve data quality. I think that's something that we have to begin in a climate where there's no data governance framework that's guiding local authorities. Yet we are using all of these technologies. And there's information sitting all over our networks at different departments and places that potentially might get exposed. And for that in itself, for me, is a huge risk that I would want to perhaps get advice on how do we go about. Because AI is here, people are using it. And obviously, I don't have an issue with that, but obviously we have to govern that.
Thank you, Jonathan. Jonathan is IT manager of Hesequa Municipality in Riversdale. For the panel, who wants to take this question? Rowan, can we move this question to you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if I'm the right person to ask. When AI came out, our team leader and the chief investment officer of the investment team said, for us, the risk is not adopting AI. So we take quite an aggressive stance on encouraging it. And this was not to threaten or whatever people, but to really strongly encourage people to experiment and to try exploit the tool for what it can do to enhance our value creation processes. But obviously on the other side of I can almost say of the business, the COO was freaking out, and the CTO as well, with regards to the amount of contraventions. And I see in the chat there was a question about or concern about sending data, for example, to American companies. That will our data be exploited? Those type of concerns. Obviously, POPIA comes into play here with personal data, and there's now also the European AI Act, which for our company we need to comply with that type of thing. And then, as you mentioned, David, we also have the South African governance wheels turning slowly with regards to the legislation or the strategies there. So probably some more guidance coming soon for that. But I do think that the key comes back to leadership. So to ask, we realize this thing as, for example, coding for us now. One time, one of our database tables was dropped, just deleted by an AI agent. Then you realize, whoa, how did this happen? And then you realize, well, this individual already had those permissions to delete the table. And were we actually on top of those risks before they got AI, or before the AI agent started interacting with the database? So I think these questions, it comes back to the theme of the day. Although it's a new tool, the risk controls need to be in place before AI comes on the scene. Those things need to be carefully considered and the risks of individuals doing things, whatever it may be, sending data to the wrong places, disseminating personal data, client data, that type of thing. It was there before. So if AI comes on the scene, it's almost like it's expediting the risk fractures that were there already, because a person can only, or their AI should surely only be able to do what that person would have been able to do. If you're talking about an agent now, be that a Claude or a Copilot or a whatever. And the question is, were the correct controls in place even before AI? That's what I can add of it.
Okay.
I just want to add something to what Rowan just said now. So you can, it's all fine and well having policies, but policies without any manner of enforcement, it's wishful thinking. And if you go back to you look at the evolution of cybersecurity and the tools that exist today to protect our perimeter and internally from data exfiltration, they didn't exist 15, 20 years ago. They've morphed as the risk and the threats have changed. And from an AI perspective, right, AI it's a force multiplier. It will, if you've got good processes, it will scale your advantage. If you've got bad processes, it'll just break them faster. So it's all fine and well that we encourage our employees to use AI, and we should be encouraging them to use it. But we also have to make sure, from a responsibility perspective, that we have the right governance and security in place. The governance from an intent perspective, you have to comply with regulations and legislation, but you also have to have the tools in place to prevent people from making mistakes and to recover if they do make a mistake. And I think that's where the challenge comes in, is that, again, if companies need to understand why they want to use AI in the first place, and then you've got to build all the capabilities that come with that.
It's all the shit that other municipalities are doing, how they're using AI and what have you. And I mean, like,
Shane, you can continue, sorry.
That's fine. I was done.
Okay. Thank you, Nick. Over to you.
Yeah, just a couple of comments really build on Shane's points. If you hear someone say, let's use Copilot, wrong thing. We have Copilot, let's use it. I mean, ramming the technology down like how they fatten geese, to make pate. A Copilot. That would be a red flag for me. There are plenty of solutions out there, even from local vendors, where you can very adequately and quickly take a broadly off-the-shelf, very relatively easily deployable solution and implement it into your operation. And I think that's also one of the other challenges. A lot of the large vendors, particularly last year, AI is, we're replacing our development workforce. We're reducing our headcount. AI is the future. This year, it's the opposite. We've realized actually we need people. Right? Microsoft just launched an organization of 6,000 forward deployed engineers, which is another word for developers. Right? If you remember Steve Ballmer, developers, if anyone remembers that famous thing when he was on stage saying that. So again, this technology-led language, that would be a red flag for me. On the policy, someone mentioned in the chat there, the national AI policy was withdrawn because of the fact that there were references in that document which were not verifiable. How they got in there is debatable from what you read in the press. And I won't comment on that because we work quite closely with the DCDT. We have a good relationship with them and the association. And they made the right call about removing that policy. But again, that is another example of something being created where the people creating it didn't understand necessarily what was in the document. All right, so you've outsourced. However it was outsourced, it may have been an individual that created it or an AI or both. If you're handing in your homework to the president, you better get it right. So I think that's another good example where you become reliant on the technology. It's being rammed down your throat. Use Copilot, use this, use that. you become reliant on it. You're not checking document, you're not checking the veracity of the information that's in it, and that's a big mistake. Also, people just confusing the national AI strategy and policy. They're completely separate activities in two different departments, and also we don't have a national AI strategy at the moment. So I think guidance from the top, I still think is, if you compare us to other countries, is not necessarily there. There are this fragmented governance landscape, as Shane mentioned. There are these emerging standards and frameworks to use, but it's still, again, very, very, very early days, and there's a lot of counterintuitive language coming from last year into this year. If you're in the vendor ecosystem like we are quite a lot, and we're going to be showcasing 20 hand-picked AI innovators to be at our event in August. And again, we've chosen them to align with service delivery, service improvement. So please engage. David, I think we'll try and get the people that joined the call a ticket to be there. But it's your opportunity to kind of also step outside of the hyperscaler hype, if I can call it that, the Microsoft, AWS, Google. They're all partners of ours. We get on really well. But on your doorstep, there are the people innovating and creating some very, very interesting solutions, which won't necessarily mean that you rely on the investment that you've made through Microsoft. And if you look at the French government as another example, people are now moving away from the hyperscaler solutions. French government are moving to Linux. They're getting rid of Microsoft. Some European countries now are creating their own version of WhatsApp. They're creating their own chat environment. And so I think the other thing to layer into this, and I think we've touched on it earlier around, I think it's called the US Cloud Act, this idea that foreign entities can peer into what you're doing, and how do we ensure that that doesn't become the case. Now, whether you can procure your way through that problem is a question for those involved in procurement. I don't think necessarily Microsoft locally can change their global terms and conditions. Maybe they can. Maybe there's people on this call that know more about it than me. So I think we're living in this very turbulent, evolving landscape. The number of people that are actually usefully using this technology is incredibly small. And I think when we're in this ecosystem here, we think everybody's using it, and actually it's a much smaller population of people that are using it and getting value from it. So those are just my kind of words of wisdom. But David, I do have to leave as a hard stop, so I'm afraid I'm going to have to dip out here. But I want to say thank you to everyone for allowing me to be part of this today.
Thank you very much for your contribution, Nick, and have a good day further.
Thanks, everyone.
For the panel members, we're shutting down at 11 sharp. So can I have a last message from you to the floor? Take into account that the people on the floor here today some are strategic leaders, some are coming to this from a technology perspective. What is the message that must go to executive and strategic leadership coming from our deliberations today? Carl, can I start with you, please?
Yes, so I think one thing that we need to, and then that's the message I want to say, is like AI is not, it is in the process, it's not the outcome. We should not govern the outcome so strict. We must be more strict on the outcome. So AI helps you to report. There must be controls in assessing the report, or it's a Power BI dashboard, and that the controls must be on the output level, or not the process level, or else we're going to restrict AI up until such a point we will not be able to use it. Use it responsible, learn how to train your own AI as well, get that skills, and get your people skill on training their own AI, give them proper instructions. If you build bots and that, you can have specifications on that. Don't be limiting, but also be cautious.
Thank you very much, Ruan.
Thanks, David, and thanks everybody for your attention. I want to emphasize again that the value starts in your seat, and this goes from exco level down, or from the top down. The domain owner needs to carry the value. and use those 3 questions. Who do we owe the value for? What value do we need to add? And what do we measure success against? And then the strategy for your tooling, including AI, will flow out from there. And yeah, it's I want to almost encourage people as well. The risk is not engaging with the tools and technologies of our time more than anything else. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruan. Shane?
I think maybe in closing, just to respond to the question that or the statement that Myrna made earlier on around preventing people from using these tools, because I don't think blocking usage is the best approach, because it just drives the usage underground. So much from a shadow AI perspective, so much damage is already being done by data exfiltration through these unsanctioned browsers that if you don't adopt it with a proper corporate strategy around how to use AI, what are you going to use it for, what tools are we going to invest in, and what security and governance are we going to build in at the process, you're actually just going to create another environment where employees are going to find ways to move around it, whether it's taking photographs of documents and uploading that, or screenshots, or using personal accounts on unsecured browsers. That you have to change the behavior, but you also have to adopt and invest in the right technology. And it comes down to understanding, again, what your use cases are, the intent, why you need to use it, what is your outcome? And then again, go back to what I said right at the beginning, who is accountable in your organization? Because if you don't have anybody who is accountable, you're unable to defend any decisions that AI makes.
Thank you, Shane. Everybody, thank you for attending. From the perspective of the Western Cape government, whom I represent on Civil Coffee Klatsch, I want to thank you for spending the time with us. Last comment from my side is Department of Local Government, which I'm part of. If you require us to make a presentation to your executive or strategic leadership with regards to artificial intelligence and what was shared today, you are welcome to contact us. You've got my Western Cape government email address. So thank you very much for attending. Thank you for the panel members. Thank you for your insights and the value you've created in our lives. So thank you. I'm going to shut down the session now.
Thanks, David. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Yes, thank you.